Welcome to Decoding Devy. This is episode 16, and I am Brandon Haye, and you can find me on Twitter at HayeB3. And this is brought to you by the IDP Guys. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. There's tons of off-season content coming through, and then also look to subscribe or buy the IDP Guys Rookie magazine. It has offense and defensive rookie profiles. So go ahead and check that out. So the links will be under the YouTube video when this comes out. So last week we did not record because I finally came positive with COVID and was sick, but don't worry, I'm fine now. And this week we will come with you with the first ever rookie mock draft of the Decoding Devy podcast. And since the draft is about a month away, we're going to be doing even more of these in the coming weeks. But I picked from spot 6 because a lot of my dynasty drafts, rookie drafts, I'll be drafting around there. So I'll go over the picks, my reasoning, and for some of the more premier type players, kind of some places after the initial free agency where I think would be good fits for them. So let's go ahead and get into it. So I know a lot of people now are saying for Malik Willis to be 101, but in this draft, Breece Hall went 101. That's where I would be at too. I'm not as high on Malik Willis. I understand people that would take him number 1, but I think Breece Hall has shown that everything in the combine and then through his tape that he's overall the best running back. And especially if he sneaks in the first round, I think he should definitely go up there. Some spots for him, you would obviously want him to go somewhere where he could be the lead back. So somewhere like Atlanta, even Miami, Houston, but he should be able to get good fantasy value right away. Just depends on how high his ceiling would be where he goes. Then pick 2 went Malik Willis. I'll probably do an episode later on my feelings why I would take Breece over Malik more in depth. I just think he has a lot of room to go. Landing spot will obviously be big with him. He's definitely going to have that running ability, but kind of like Jalen Hurts. But I think Jalen Hurts is much better coming out of college, being able to read defenses, much better competition. So I just wonder about that with Malik Willis. I know he had a great pro day, but I would expect him to. He has all the physical tools. What I'm more worried about is what he does, in the game or on the field. Sometimes he doesn't read as quickly, stays in the pocket a little too long. Definitely could learn to do that better, but I just have those kind of questions coming out if he can ever be consistent enough as a passer to be the starter to pick him this high in the draft. So next is Treylon Burks at 103. I really do like Treylon Burks, but he's my second wide receiver in this draft. I think Garrett Wilson is number 1 because he's more polished and he's better overall in everything. And then Kenneth Walker went 4th. If you've been paying attention, Kenneth Walker has definitely leapfrogged Isaiah Spiller since the combine, and then in the pro day, Isaiah Spiller didn't really, show that type of athletic numbers to, kind of change that. And Kenneth Walker was so good last year in college, so he's up there. So he's the second running back, and that's how I've changed my opinion. Earlier, was Breece Hall, then Isaiah Spiller, then Kenneth Walker, but I flip-flopped Kenneth Walker second. I think there's a gap between Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker, but he's still a very good running back, and he should be able to step into a role depending on the team and have fantasy value right away. Physical runner, but has that big playability. I think he needs to work on pass pro some and work on some of his elusiveness in the hole. But he still showed last year that he was a great player. And I'm not as down on his receiving work. I think at Michigan State, they just didn't throw it to him. I've seen some film of him catching passes, and he seems, fairly natural with that. And then fifth here, the pick right before me, Garrett Wilson. Like I said, I have his as the number one wide receiver. So, he's very good, in route running and, after the catch. So I'm trying to think, Garrett Wilson, depending on where he might go, I would say in the mid first round. It all depends on if people are more enamored with Treylon Burks' athleticism. But I would have loved to get Garrett Wilson at pick 6 right here. But with Matt Corral, I ended up choosing Matt Corral because, as you can see on the board, if I waited till my second round, I would probably end up with Desmond Ridder, which is, I'm not as high on him either. I think he should probably go second round. I think he's more developmental quarterback, and I'm not sure that he, will be a starter in the NFL. He lacks consistency. I know a lot of people like his leadership skills and everything, but his consistency with accuracy is really on and off. And, that was at Cincinnati. That doesn't play the best competition every week. So I wonder with that up in competition, if he can truly improve on his accuracy. Back to Corral. He's my quarterback one of this class. I think he's cleaned up his interceptions last year. He's very mobile, can run the ball. Needs to take less hits because last year when he had some injuries, his production went way down. One team I would really like him to go to is the Giants. They have 2 top picks in the top 10. I know they said they're going with Daniel Jones, but this would definitely, I don't think they can pass on Corral. They could let Daniel Jones start the season. And depending on how that goes, then Corral could play later this season. With the new coaching staff with DeBoll. And I think the same things that they did in Buffalo with Josh Allen, Matt Corral can do. He's not as big and physical, but they can do a lot of read options. He can, he can throw the ball on the move. He's quick with decisions. Sometimes he has a little inaccuracy on the deep ball. But I think that's more mechanics. He can make those deep passes and, make those quick decisions. And I think the biggest thing will be for him is to go to a team that kind of matches what he did at Ole Miss, kind of that quick system, with RPOs, getting the ball out pretty fast. And at Ole Miss, he had Elijah Moore. And I'm not as big on Kadarius Toney, but he has that slot guy around there and a running back in Saquon Barkley to do a lot of those things. So I think there are some weapons with New York that could fit with Matt Corral. And then at pick 7, Drake London went. I'm not as high on Drake London. I have him as wide receiver 6, but I get why people, like him a lot. Great production, big body, good after the catch. I think he can be a wide receiver 2 in the NFL. I just don't see the ceiling of a wide receiver 1. Then the next is Jamison Williams at 1.8. Another one, I would pick Williams over him because of just his speed. And if I didn't pick Corral, Williams would have been my pick there. He has some things he needs to clean up with some of his technique, catching the ball, especially across the middle. But we saw what he did with Bama last year. Now, pick 9 is Isaiah Spiller. And now I've seen some people say, well, does Isaiah Spiller drop past 3? I know the testing numbers weren't great, and there's definitely some inconsistencies in his film too. Runs a little upright, isn't consistent with his physical play. But based on this class, like I said, Breece Hall, then a little drop off, then Kenneth Walker, probably a bigger drop off to Spiller, and then I think there's a huge drop off from Spiller until 4 or 5. So this is probably good for anyone that has a pick near the end of the first round. They can maybe get Spiller late, and I still think he's going to be a very good running back. Probably not the ceiling of the other two, but definitely could be a running back 2. Then at pick 10, Kenny Pickett. So I have moved him ahead of Sam Howell now as my quarterback 2. This year, he really had a great year at Pitt. My biggest question was this just a one-year wonder, or did he finally figure it out at Pittsburgh? So, but he shows a lot of great things, and depending on where he goes, he could, go to a situation where there's, wide receivers, and he could play right away and be very good. So it all depend on where he goes. Then pick 11, Chris Olave, who I really like. He's kind of moving up boards now because, some people are down on him, especially in the analytics community, based on Ohio State and him going back for another year. But I think with his speed, he showed at the combine, and I think he's definitely going to be in the first round. One team I would like for him to go to is the Saints. So they need another wide receiver, or even the Patriots. I think the Patriots could use him very well. And then the last pick of the first round, which I think is great value, is Sam Howell. I think he's still, he's not going to be as highly drafted as people thought he was going to be, but I still like him. Very tough. He's another one like Corral. He needs to learn to not take all those big hits, but I do like him a lot. Strong arm. I think he could kind of wait behind someone. I could see maybe if the Tennessee Titans pick him, in the first or the second. And then, if Tannehill doesn't make that improvement, then he could go there. But I think Howell definitely is a good spot there to get some depth on your team, get a possible, super flex quarterback there. Then we head to the second round. We have a run on wide receivers with George Pickens. I think this is good value too. There's some worries about Pickens' effort and his injuries. But if he goes to a good situation, he definitely has that alpha type profile and could definitely have that. So that's a good pick there. Next two are Sky Moore and Christian Watson. Both have been kind of raising up the boards. Good wide receivers, good speed. Showed a lot at the combine, and Watson at the Senior Bowl. So I think those wide receivers will go faster than the running backs, because after the first 3 running backs, there's a drop off. And then the next running back is Rachaad White out of Arizona State. A lot of people in the community are high on him and want him to get good value. He had a very good year. He started at community college, transferred to Arizona State, had a good year this year, a good receiver. Kind of depends on his draft capital and where he goes. And then, as I mentioned earlier, Desmond Ridder went right before my pick. I'm not as high on him, but he does have fantasy value if he would start because of his running ability. And I did hate on missing a lot of the wide receivers in the first round, but at pick 6 in the second round, I get Jahan Dotson out of Penn State. He's actually my 5th highest wide receiver, so I would have taken him over Pickens, Sky Moore, and Christian Watson. So to get them 3 and 4 picks afterwards, it's great value. I love Dotson on his route running, his decisiveness, his speed. He can make contested catches. I think he's that type of wide receiver that the NFL is looking for to move outside and inside. So I'm really excited for him, and he's probably going to go somewhere where he's not the number 1, but he can come in right away and be fantasy relevant early on. So I really like him. Next is David Bell. 2 years ago, I was very high on David Bell, but the more I watched, the lack of his getting separation and just his athleticism kind of worries me. I think he can still be a great NFL player, fantasy-wise, limited to probably maybe a wide receiver 3, depending on the team. So this is where it gets interesting. Justin Ross went at pick 8 in the second round. So Justin Ross came if you don't know, came out huge freshman year at Clemson, played really well his sophomore year, then had an injury to his neck, didn't play. Then he came back this last year, did not look like the same player. I'm very interested what the NFL feels on his medical evaluation. Some people community are saying, to get him because, he's, as long as he clears medically, he's just great talent. My just question is, it's been a couple years since he has been that great talent. I just kind of wonder if he's really that elite type prospect, because he was doing that Clemson with Trevor Lawrence. So that'll be interesting. I would probably take a chance on him in the third round, not this high in the second, because I would still want Wandale, Mechie, Tolbert, and maybe Pierce, who all came a round after him. Then the first tight end goes off the board at 2.9 at Trey McBride out of Colorado State. He's a good blocker, good receiver. Didn't have very many touchdowns, but a lot of people are projecting him to be top tight end. But this tight end class isn't nearly as high as previous ones, but I think there's still players in there that you could roster and could, give you starts in, back end wide tight end 1 or, tight end 2 range. Then Zamir White out of Georgia went, and Brian Robinson out of Alabama. Both of those guys are going to be, running backs that are heavy on first and second down. I'll be interested. They'll probably be part of a committee. So depending on the committee will depend on, their value. But as you can see, the running backs, there was 12 receivers go before the 5th running back. So it's a much heavier wide receiver draft. And then at the end of the second round, another great value, Wandale Robinson. I know he didn't necessarily test as great, and he's smaller, so he's probably be stuck in the slot. But I think on the right team, right scheme, he could be used very well. I know there was rumors that someone on the joined the Rams staff that was from Kentucky that might really like him. That'd be a great situation. But he's a guy that can, even though he does not the size of Deebo Samuels, he can get some runs and get going in the running game. And he's just very elite in yards after the catch. And he's much more physical than people give him credit for. So he can stretch the field, do the intermediate. Like I said, for Jahan Dotson, these type of players, these type of wide receivers are becoming more sought after than the big contested catch guys. And then we have the third round. Dameon Pierce goes. I think that's a little high for him. I know he did well at Florida efficiency-wise, but didn't get the ball a lot. But there'll be a couple of running backs I would want before him. And they actually go this round. In the second tight end, Greg Dulcich out of UCLA. He tested well at the combine. So he's another one that should probably go in the first few rounds. Then we have Kyron Williams and Cook out of Georgia, and then Jerome Ford, who I took. So I'd take all three of those running backs over Dameon Pierce. And actually, I would take all those over Zamir White. Not all of them over Brian Robinson, probably just Ford over Robinson. So Kyron Williams, he, his combine numbers kind of put off a little bit because that kind of limited to his work, being more of a traditional back than just a change of pace third down back. I think James Cook can do. A lot of people aren't necessarily as high on him, but I think he can do a little bit of everything. He's very good out of the backfield. So I think he could do some things kind of like James White, but maybe have a little bit more of a running role, that second running back that gets the ball every now and then between the tackles, but gets a lot of passes out of the backfield. Then Carson Strong goes. I like Carson Strong a lot. Different, the thing is he doesn't have that mobility, but he has a strong arm, and he's going to get a chance most likely if he goes first or second round, depending on the team. But he would need to go to a team that has, good weapons and a pretty good offensive line, so he doesn't have to run around as much. But I do like his strong arm and his accuracy especially on deep balls. I liked getting Jerome Ford. I'm same as Dotson. I hated missing on all the wide receivers. Same with Ford, missing some of those running backs. But I was impressed with him at Cincinnati. He's actually my running back 5, I believe. And, he shows good toughness, and he has some speed if he gets outside to, go the distance. One thing I want to see more out of him is more of his moves inside, the hole. Sometimes you'd see that in the red zone where you do a jump cut to get outside, spin move, but not enough elusiveness. So I'd like to see more of that from him. But even though he's probably going to be in a committee, I could see him being the lead of a committee in certain places, like in Atlanta or Miami or even in Houston. So next is Pierce out of Cincinnati, then Mechie and Tolbert. I'm actually surprised these guys lasted till the 3rd round. Mechie with the injury, I understand that. I think the NFL is going to like him more than people think. And then with Tolbert, he's kind of come up a little bit with his combine workout. From what I saw from him, he did not create tons of separation, but he's good at after the catch. Had a great dominator in college, so I think he could be a great second wide receiver on the team. Tyler Algier out of BYU. I would probably have taken him over Dameon Pierce and Zamir White. Then Khalil Shakir out of Boise State. Great production there. Ran a great 40. So I think this is right about the right place for him. Then Pierre Strong, the running back, goes here. He's kind of been topped up a little bit, but we'll see how high he can really go. So I think, unlike other drafts before, I think the 3rd round has a lot of players that not only have good value, but they could be fantasy starters even this coming year. Maybe not get you wide receiver, running back 1 numbers, but running back 2 or 3, wide receiver 2 or 3 numbers, which is always important, especially depending on your lead size for the flex. So we went to 5 rounds. So round 4, it gets a little shaky. We have Ingram. Then we have a big run on tight ends. Charlie Kolar out of Iowa State, Weidermeyer out of Texas A&M, who really didn't help himself running the 40. Jelani Woods out of Virginia, a big guy, and Tyler Beatty out of Missouri, which I am intrigued by his receiving skills. So it depends on what kind of team he goes to. But if they are looking for a receiving back, he could have, flex potential in certain matchups. I went with tight end, and one player that did not have a ton of production in college that I really like is Jeremy Ruckert. He has ideal size. He has good hands, but he is dealing with some injuries, so didn't get to run everything at the combine. So I think, if he does fall, I think he'd be good value here, especially in the 4th round. Another player I like, Isaiah Likely. He was a wide receiver coming into college, got moved to tight end, made a little weight. Not a great blocker, but a willing blocker. Can be worked on with that, but he was moved all over the field. I could see him being used like Jonnu Smith was used in Tennessee. Kind of move him around, get him open. He's athletic. Then Ely from Ole Miss. I was surprised he didn't run better, so I'm kind of worried about his size and how he'll be used. Another intriguing player, Calvin Austin, great speed, just size. You wonder what he'll really be used. He might be a better just for an NFL team to use every now and then rather than consistent fantasy production, but still not a horrible dart throw here. Then we end with some running backs. Kevin Harris, Tyler Goodson, and Devontae Price. Kevin Harris out of South Carolina. Didn't have a great year. I just think kind of is just a guy, probably be maybe on a roster, but I don't know if he ever has starting ability. Next, Tyler Goodson out of Iowa. I want to see him in a more diverse offense at Iowa. Their passing game isn't much, so they didn't really utilize him to his best abilities. Actually, I did the profile for the Rookie Magazine on Tyler Goodson. He ran great routes that they asked him to, special angle routes out of the backfield. He would always get open from there. So I think he can add to that. And, he's not going to be probably a full-time running back, but he's more than capable of running between the tackles and making moves. He has great speed. So I really like him here. He probably is my running back, I think 10. So I would take him over some of these, over Kevin Harris, Keontae Ingram. And then the last round, the 5th round, I didn't even actually mean to do 5 rounds, but we went ahead and did it. Some intriguing players. Romeo Dubs went in the 2nd round, wide receiver out of Nevada. He was great at Nevada with Carson Strong. So he could be one of those guys that is drafted late, but could, once he gets into camp, could make a big impression. So I think that's a wide receiver, a good wide receiver in the 5th round. If he was at my pick, I probably would have picked him. Then we have some running backs in Zonovan Knight and Sincere McCormick. Though they might get drafted, but I don't see a lot of value necessarily in them. Then I went with Tyquan Thornton. I've been big on him even before he ran the fastest time at the combine. He didn't have production all of his years, but I really liked a lot what I saw. He's that really speedy guy, to take the top off the defense, but can also threaten in the intermediate and short. So I think he could be like a developmental guy that gets some big plays. So he could be one of those players early on where if you have him in best ball, he could have huge gains depending on what team he goes to. But at least for a couple of years, I wouldn't necessarily trust that consistency till I see it. Then we have Ty Chandler from North Carolina, Abram Smith from Baylor, and Hassan Haskins from Michigan. Chandler ran a lot faster than I thought he would, and he had some very good games for North Carolina. He doesn't seem like a full-time back. So another one of those, if the right situation, he might be part of that committee where you could, have some fantasy relevance. Abram Smith, I like, but yet again, he'll probably be part of a committee, if anything. And Hassan Haskins, who's dear to my heart as a Michigan fan, great college player, great guy. Doesn't have the best speed. I think it really hurt him not being able to participate at the Senior Bowl. I don't know if he gets drafted. If not, undrafted free agent. I think he does have a spot on a team because I think once he gets into camp and really shows what he can do, he's more athletic than people give him credit for. He's a good pass blocker. He's good out of the backfield. He kind of like Kenneth Walker. He didn't get a ton of passes out of there, but he definitely can catch the ball. He's a smart player, so I could see him being part of a committee, maybe even a goal line back because he was great around the goal line at Michigan. Another player that I would take a flyer on that got picked 10th is Bo Melton. He's from Rutgers. He ran very well too, but that Rutgers offense was a mess. They couldn't pass the ball. So he's probably going to do a lot of special teams coming in the league, but maybe he could get more work, kind of like a Jaheim Grant has done with the Bears. So I would be interested with him. And then you have a Bellinger, tight end out of San Diego State, and Bailey Zappi out of Western Kentucky. I think that's a fine flyer also. I don't know, if he really has, the best NFL arm or will make it, but could be a backup in the NFL, and you could never have enough quarterbacks on your roster just in case something like that happens. So I'm very happy with mine. I got the quarterback, the wide receiver, the running back, tight end, and another flyer wide receiver. Some other teams that I think did very well. Let's see. First 2 rounds, I like the last pick 12 with Sam Howell and Wan'Dale Robinson. Let's see at some of the other ones. I think everyone was pretty spread out. Even though I don't love Ritter or Strong, to get 2 of those that are probably going to go the first 2 rounds quarterbacks along with Garrett Wilson. Those are really good picks. And I think I really liked how the draft went, but we'll do another one soon. So if you want to comment on the YouTube channel, comment who you think did the best, who you think did the worst, what you think I did wrong, some players you like that are surprised by. Just comment on the YouTube video, so we can kind of interact that way. And I'll also post a picture of this on my Twitter, so we can so you can comment on there too. So that concludes episode 16, and we'll have another episode for you next Monday, the first week of April. So we will see you next week.